Assalamu alaikum. Today I'm here with another board game review of the Red Cathedral, and I'm going to tell you that why you should play this game. Red Cathedral is a very simple, to say, contract fulfillment game in which 1 to 4 players will be competing with each other to build the beautiful Red Cathedral or Saint Basil's Cathedral of Russia. Now, as I said, that in concept it's going to be very simple. It's a contract fulfillment game, but it does have unique mechanisms which cover it up that makes it really unique. So let's get on with it and understand how this game works and cover this simple mechanic with some beautiful new skin, which makes it very interesting. In Red Cathedral, we are the contractors, architects, construction crew, whatever you want to call us, who have been hired by Ivan the Terrible, the Tsar of Russia, to actually build this cathedral. Now, what we will be doing is over the course of the game comes with different layouts of this cathedral which we can build. So for each of your game, you will be picking one of those cards. So for example, right now I have picked up this card and it's going to tell me how the cathedral is going to look like by the time it ends. Right now, this might not look much, but this card is going to actually tell me that there is going to be how many tops, how many towers it's going to have, how many middle sections it's going to have, how many doors it's going to have. And these are represented by the backside of these cards. The backsides are barren, like scaffolding or sketch artwork right now. But once you do complete those contracts, then you would be flipping those, and then you will be seeing the actual artwork that now I have completed this part of the cathedral. So even though all the players will be competing to actually make one cathedral, but there is a competition between them. Players are not working on their separate cathedrals. They are just working on separate parts of the cathedral to complete them first. Now, the game has 3 parts. And let me tell you the simple gist of those things. First part is that you will be claiming a contract that which part of the cathedral you're going to do by putting one of your flags, your colored flags, on one of the contracts and claiming that this is the part of the cathedral that I want to complete. Second part of the game is going to be that to complete this contract, you will need some resources, and those resources are mentioned on the card. So for example, if I claim this portion, or let's say this top, then it does say that I will need 2 brick and 1 purple gem to complete this part. Once I claim this, those are the materials that I will try to earn. And that's where the second part is going to come, which is this board. And on this board are different resources from where I'm going to gain the resources. Once I have enough the resources, the third part of the game is sending those resources to the required contract. You can claim multiple contracts. You can try to fulfill multiple contracts at the same time as well, or partially complete them and complete them in one go. That's up to you. And once you are able to send the required goods, then you will be claiming this section that you have completed this part of the contract. Once any player has completed all their 6 contracts that they are required to complete, then every other player will get one more round and then the game finishes. At that time, it will be checked that which was the contractor who had the most prestige or who had the most prestige points. And based upon those, you will be declared the winner. Now, that was the gist of the game. Once you have understood that there are going to be these 3 parts, now let us go a little bit deep into those 3 steps in reverse order, because I do think that to understand this, it might be better to actually go in reverse order better for you to understand. So let's start with the contract fulfillment. So we were talking about contract fulfillment. Even though I have selected this one, again, don't use this video as a rules explanation, because of course there are rules that you cannot complete an upper section or claim an upper section until a lower section has been claimed. You can complete it, but you cannot claim it. Again, not going into that level of detail of rules. So I'm taking a very simple example. So this card is going to tell me that I need 2 bricks and 1 gem. I will should have those resources here. Once I have those resources, then one additional thing that's going to be also here is these additional tiles. These are called the workshop tiles, which are placed randomly on each of these tiles. These are additional bonus powers that are awarded by the czar, so he lets you upgrade your workshop. You can understand that as a thematic sense for completing your contract. So other than any other rewards that are written on top of the card for completing this, so you might be getting some points, you might be getting some money for completing those, plus you will be getting a workshop upgrade. But the workshop upgrade is not free. Let's first complete this task. So once I complete it, I'll be flipping it, but still keeping my flag on top of this card to remember that I completed this one. Because at the end of the game, there is also going to be a kind of area majority game happening, which lets you have more scores as well. So that's why the flags are important to forever check that who has more flags. Now, at this time, another thing that will be checked is that was I really the one. Let's say the yellow player was the other one who had claimed this below section at that time. If I was able to complete the top section before the yellow player who had claimed the bottom section, then it's a shameful thing for the yellow player, because ideally he should have completed the bottom section before I completed the top section. So at that time, they will be losing some prestige as well. So there are those kind of race elements in these contract fulfillment as well. Coming back to the workshop tiles. Now I have picked up one of these tiles. On my player board, there are going to be different areas where I can place these additional tiles. Some of these tiles are going to have dice shapes, or some of these tiles can even have more simpler shape. For example, this one has just the shape of a brick on it. So now if on any of these empty spaces, if I'm able to pay that required cost, so for example, for majority of these spaces, the cost is 2 rubles. Rubles is the coin money of this game. So whether I say coin or rubles, it stands for the same thing. I can pay these 2 coins back to the reserve and place this brick in any of these empty slots. Now what this, for example, I place this in the green. What it lets me do is that in future, whenever I will use the green dice on the resource board, I will be getting one additional advantage. That's the advantage of upgrading your workshop. So that's your contract fulfillment, which brings us to the previous step, which is where do we get resources to actually complete those contracts? And that's what this board is. It's divided into 4 sections, which represents the 4 seasons that you will get to experience. And these are what you can consider, these dice you can consider as the kind of workers that are available, who will be moving through the or working through the seasons to produce some goods. Now, how that works is really unique part of the game. So initially you will be just throwing randomly some dice and it will be showing some numbers. These represent that how much this worker is going to move, and that's the element or that's the resource that they are going to produce. So for example, let's say this green dice is showing me a 6, which means it's going to move 6 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it will land in this space, and now this good represents that this green worker will be able to produce this required good, which was 2 woods. Also, what I need to be careful is that, let's take another example. Let's take a more simple example. This yellow dice was going to move 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3. If it landed here, then there is one worker available on this space, and this space is showing me 2 rocks. So one worker per worker, I'm going to produce 2 rocks, which means if I had moved the yellow worker, I'll be taking 2 rocks from the reserve and placing them on my workshop. The spaces on these workshops are limited, so you will be trying to actually use or make space by claiming some contracts, and that's one of the ways of removing the flags and making more space in your workshop, to make more space in your workshop, because You once you have taken a resource, you cannot discard them later on. You either have to fulfill your contract, or before you take the resource, you have to say that no, I'm not interested in taking all the resources. Maybe I will just take one rock or zero rock even. Anyway, so once I have moved this, one of the things that I will get to do is pick up these resources. Second thing that I get to do is that there are going to be these influence cards available. For each of these quadrants, there is going to be an influence card which are going to give some additional action or bonus action which I can take at that time, which might be, for example, this one is going to let me pay one additional coin, pay one coin to send one of my goods to fulfill a contract. So even without taking another action, I can pay money to send the goods. Or there is an alternate action on each of these cards as well. This kind of card is going to let me give away any one of the good for 1 ruble. So I'm selling off my goods for money. This one is just going to, the priest is just going to give me points. And then there are going to be traders who are going to take two of any of my goods and give me one good of my choice in return. So if I really needed a gem to complete one of my contracts and I'm somehow unable to land on that space exactly, then maybe that's what I want. Because as you have seen, I'm limited by the movement of the dice, that how they are going to move. Now, these influence cards are also multiple influence cards are available, and you will be just using one set of these cards in each of your games, not all of them. And that will remain static for all the game. Then our turn is still not done. Once you have moved it here, the other thing you're going to do is re-roll this dice, and that will be placed back here. So the value has changed for all other players. So a yellow die does not mean that it always moves 3 spaces every time for all the rest of the game. You will, whenever you use one of these dice, you get to re-roll them and they will have a new value. And so it dynamically changes that what will they do next. Then another thing that will happen unique with these dice, if you look closely at the board, then you will be able to see that actually there are 3 spots per space where the dice can come. Which means, taking this back, if I hadn't taken these rocks, if I had moved the green dice 6 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now what do I see is the green worker has come on to wood. So ideally I should be getting 2 wood. But right now there are 2 workers. So I should be getting 2 wood per worker on that space. And that's the advantage of having more workforce in one space. So instead of 2 wood, I will be getting 4 wood. If there was another third die as well, then I would be getting 6 wood instead. And in this way, 3 dice is the maximum. You can try to actually optimize your movement or that specific type of resource that you can capture right now, and accordingly get those resources that you really need. But maybe for fulfilling my contract, I don't need wood, or maybe I should get that type of contract which really does require a lot of wood because I'm going to be rich in wood. So there are all these options that you need to evaluate when taking these resources or claiming the contracts, which brings us to the first part of the actions that are going to be available to you, which is claiming the contracts. Now, for claiming the contract, as I mentioned in the gist, that you will be taking one of your flags and putting them on one of these unclaimed cards to claim that which is the card that you are going to take. Once you have decided you are going to claim one of the cards, and you must claim the bottom row first and only claim the higher immediate above later on. You can never claim the topmost contracts until the bottom contract is unclaimed. So let's say I want to claim this one because it's going to give me a lot of money, prestige, as well as the workshop tile actually gives me gold, which is something that I really need for my future other contracts. So maybe that's why I'm deciding to actually go for this. And once I've claimed this, then That's all going to be in my turn. I made some space and I claimed one of the contracts. Now, in this way, I have explained to you in reverse order how the game is actually going to work. So, even though it's a contract fulfillment game, but claiming the contracts with a little bit of rules of when to claim what kind of contract, plus how the resource gathering works with a little bit of twist of the worker roundel mechanic, then the contract fulfillment and the workshop tile, which brings me to the workshop tab, which I forgot to explain. One of the things that I did was that I placed this brick icon on my green dice space, which, and I did use my green dice to move along. What will that trigger is that on my green dice, I have a red brick, which does mean that whenever I move the green dice, I have the option to additionally take that good which is available as a bonus advantage of my workshop. So that means I additionally get a brick as well. Plus, there are some additional things, additional twists. Again, I'm going into now more detailed rules of the game, even though you have hopefully understood the concept of the game. There are other unique mitigation methods as well. Because if you think, well, this is too restrictive, how I gather the resources, maybe I wanted, let's say, this. I'm the red player and I wanted a purple gem to complete my contract, and I'm unable to get a purple gem. How do I get it? Well, one of the thing is there is an influence card where you can trade your unusable wood which you have gathered too many of them to give him those and get another resource of your type. Or there is another market trader who can actually take two money and give you any good of your choice. There are places where you can get money for goods. So other than influencers, the workers are also having a mitigation method, but specific workers for specific players. I am the red player, so I have more agency over the red dice. Plus, the white dice is common to all the players. So they have agency, everyone has agency over the white dice, plus each player has agency over their specific color. So being red, I have more agency over red color. What does that let me do? Using rubles, I can make them move more than what they are basically allowed to do. So, for example, this die was showing 2, it moves 1 and 2, but I really needed the gold, for example. I can pay 1 ruble to make him move 1 additional space. So, I'm motivating him by money to move more and work more to get me that gold. And now I'll be getting the gold that I needed. The more money you can spend on them, the more he will keep on moving. So there is no limit to that. So now you have more control. Plus, each player board is going to have for white dice 2 spaces of workshop upgrades as well, which means that they do know that white is maybe going to be moved more than usual. So you can upgrade it twice with 2 different abilities. So every time you get to choose that which ability actually you get to use when taking this action. Now, in this way, you will keep playing the game. You will be gathering resources using the delivery action. You will be sending the resources back to where the contract requires them once you have claimed them. So let me send it here actually. And I need 1 rock. So maybe in future I moved one of these to 2 rocks. And then for one of my actions, I'm able to send the rock as well. Then I'm able to actually complete this contract. And once I complete the contract, I'll be getting this workshop advantage. Plus, there might be additional rubles, additional prestige points. The prestige point are tracked on the side of the board by moving these dials. So I'll be getting different dials, and we will keep flipping these cards over to indicate that which parts of the cathedral have been built. Now, an additional thing in building is also going to be when you deliver goods, there are going to be some decorations available as well, which you can do to decorate even not yours, but even your other players built up building locations as well. So let's say I was able to complete this door area, but the wooden door has still not been fitted yet. And that's one of the decorations, that may be a beautiful gold ornamented door can be fitted by the yellow player. There are some resources given for doors, special windows, and the Holy Cross for the top of the church. So the doors go on the bottom section, the windows go in the middle section, and the Holy Cross goes on top of these domes. So once these are completed, any player, including the player who has completed it, has the option that as long as he has the resources, he can pay and deliver one of these decorations on top of them. These decorations will also have player symbols to indicate who has built those additional decorations. Why are you doing that? It is going to give you some immediate points based on how many jewels did you embed in these decorations, and that information is given on your board, so I will not go into that detail. So the more jewels you embed in them, the more prestige you are going to get. Plus, when it comes to the end of the game, I told you one more thing, that at the end of the game, once the game is over and most of these cards have been flipped up, there is going to be area majority kind of game as well, or calculation as well, based upon who controls the most section in the tower. So for example, in this tower I had controlled 3 and the yellow player had controlled, or let's say this was the situation, they had controlled 2 of the areas, and I had control in one of the tower, I had controlled 2. But since I had one of the decorations as well, so that gives me the majority of this tower, and accordingly I will be getting some additional points, and those points will be based upon the number of completed areas in that tower. So there is a whole scoring mechanism that you will be following for additional prestige at the end of the game. Plus, the scoring is also very unique in this game because it's not going to be simple. There are 2 type of scores here given. So your normal smaller numbers are called the recognition points, or what I call them just points. And then there are these big yellow eagle type symbols which are called the prestige points. And the important are the prestige points because they act as your milestones. So whenever you drop or increase, it's important to drop or increase by a prestige point rather than your recognition point, because recognition points are slow, 1 2 3, but prestige point lets you jump a lot on the track. And at the end of the game, if you are in the middle somewhere, you will be dropping back to the previous recognition point. That's your recognition. Your prestige might be, so what I try to do is I just call them, to make things simple, I just call them points and then victory points. So your score might be different, and then your victory points are what counts really in the end. So your scoring and victory points can be different, and that's what this track represents by 2 kind of scoring. And there are certain things that are more advantageous to do at certain times. So initially, jumping your victory points or prestige points are going to be important because those jumps let you skip 4 or 5 scores or recognition points immediately. But if you do that later on, then each recognition point is equal to 1 prestige point. So there are many other, again, that might be very difficult to understand without having a close look at the board and how those different kind of scoring work. But do understand that the game does have some subtle these kind of thought-provoking ideas of how to make you think of scoring in different ways so that you are not doing the same thing over and over. Which brings me also to the point of replayability of this game. Now, there are very few games which I have seen who come with this much randomized content that you can have in the game. From how the goods are tokens and not printed on the board. So every time you will have a different kind of combination on the board. Even though I don't think that's what's required, because these dice are always going to be rolled, randomly placed, So there is no real combination of that blue comes first, then green comes. No, they will always be random. So even if they had printed the goods in certain fixed locations, it really wouldn't have mattered. But still, they made it random. Plus, with the randomization of dice, so it has infinite randomization. The influence cards, there are three of each type. So, a combination of trying each influencer with the other influencer, you will have a lot of combination of those. The there are going to be these plans how the cathedral is set up is going to be different. There are different, at least three cards per player count are available that you can play with. Then for these resources which you get to complete to flip them over, there are different kind of dome cards available, different kind of middle level cards available, different kind of bottom cards available. So every time you're going to have different kind of requirements printed on the backside, that how do you complete those. Then on top of them, there isn't fixed value of your factory upgrades that are printed on them. Instead, these are tokens as well. So you will have those randomized as well, that what factory tokens are available for upgrade this time if you complete the bottom row. Next time it will be different. Next time it will be different. And if that was not all, then there is on the back side of your player boards, there is going to be an advanced game mode as well, which is going to unlock different kind of decorations based upon which workshop you unlock. So again, there is a lot of replayability in this game out of the box. To start with, it started with the very simple concept of resource fulfillment game, contract fulfillment game. But with all this additional mechanisms that are tied into this, they excel at making such a big game in a very small box. And Devere has really done a fantastic job in doing so. So if you like Euro games, if you like games that are going to be small but pack a punch and have really unique mechanisms, then you cannot go wrong with the Red Cathedral. Plus, it plays 1 to 4, which does mean yes, it does come with a solo mode. It does come with a separate card set, which lets you play against one of the solo automa players. I'm not a solo player, so I haven't tried that, but it does support solo play as well. There are new expansions for this one. At the time of making this video, there is a new expansion already in the works for this one. So hopefully, maybe in the future, or if you are already watching this video in the future, that expansion called the Contractors might be already out, which is going to add more things to the game. Now, the bad thing about this game is just going to be the setup or the layout of this board setup of the game, because I do think this board is too big in my opinion for what it does, because I'm just taking some resources from this board and all this middle area, even though they have put some unique looking artwork on this, but it's not really doing anything much. Plus there is no reminder that once you have moved the dice, re-roll them. And many times you will forget to re-roll your dice after you have moved it. So if you move, for example, I moved this green dice as a 6 and I completely forgot to actually re-roll this. Secondly, continuing on the board setup, if you see this player might be sitting over here. So the cathedral or looking at to look at the resources required to complete the different portions of the cathedral are too much far away from him now. These should have been somewhere in the center. So I can say that I can put this in the center, but again, there is no real right place for these to be put at. Normally, these will be left on one side, and some players might be too far away from watching these cards or watching these resources. So somehow, if this would have been fit on one board, maybe it would have been better with the cathedral in the center and a smaller mechanism for resources. So that's my only caveat with this game. But otherwise, gameplay wise, a fantastic game for you. So hopefully that gives you a clear idea of whether this game is right for you or not. And if you're interested, or if you found this video interesting and useful, don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment for any questions, or questions that you have. That's it for me. Happy gaming.